Now you are.
Hey everybody, come on in the room. We're having a conversation. I'm being interviewed by my husband, and we're going to share some things. My truth, my journey, the evolution of my soul, and I hope in sharing this that at some point today that it's going to be an encouragement to you as well. Really, all we're going to do is have a conversation, and I think dialogue in the right manner always or can lead to production of faith. You can talk to me, babe. They can hear you.
Oh, I know. I just letting you do your intro, boo.
Well, I thought you said you were doing the intro and I was just going to do the welcome. See, This is what married life is, y'all.
Well, I try to get some people on, so apologize. I'm just trying to get some people on.
Share the video.
Hey, y'all can't see me. Bishop said prophetess.
I love you, Apostle.
Y'all can't see me, but we're going to have an in-depth interview. I'm going to be asking real questions. So I just want y'all to begin to invite some people. Let me turn the camera. Hey, y'all, I'm going to be asking her some questions. So listen, go ahead and invite some people. If you have some questions that you might want me to ask, put them in the comments, and I'm going to try to get to some of those questions a little bit later. I believe this is going to be informative. I believe this is going to be impactful. So you can know some of the things that have been going on in World Bromfield. So I'm about to flip the camera back, and she's about to give you another semi-greeting.
Hey everybody, come on in the room. Let's talk. Let's have the conversation. Welcome. I'm live at location at the embassy, as you can see. My husband had this great idea yesterday. He was kind of just messing around with me with the phone, and he kind of started just asking me questions. And I thought about it. I was like, that's kind of like a good idea. So in this, I'm going to try to be as transparent as possible, and at the same time, I hope to elevate your faith, because I feel and I sense that good news is coming, even out of this, and just coming to you in general.
Most people know the story of what happened after the birth of Elisha in about December of 2016. Can you just give a quick recap between December 2016 to July 2017?
Okay. So as you guys know, the quick recap summary would be about December. I had a vision. Anybody knows that I operate with in the gifted sight. That's one of the strongest prophetic callings, and most of what you will see or hear about today has been guided along with visions in one form or another. So I don't think that there has ever been a time that a doctor has told me something that I didn't see the vision about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but even including this time, like I can't say that I've been blindsided, if that makes sense. But around December, I knew something was wrong because I had the vision. And because I had the vision, and I was also feeling some little short pains on my right side. And I told my husband, I said, I know I can't ignore this because the dream had came to me. And so, long story short, I get the diagnosis that I'm in late stages CHF, which is congestive heart failure, somewhere between stage 3 and 4, basically due to post cardiomyopathy because of pregnancy, postpartum cardiomyopathy. And that happened, and went on a journey, prayers, fasting, Bishop Winston, Prophet John Lewis, my husband, and many of the saints, the churches, MZP, Mount Zion, Embassy, everybody really prayed for me, our prayer partners across the country, and God performed a healing. On July 7th, I saw in a vision that I was going to have that report healing a few days before. July 7th, went into total healing, and that's my testimony on July 7th, 2017.
So I want to back up during that time period, because there was a sincere feeling that you had that caused some tension between us, because you wanted to do something in particular to Elisha.
Want to do something to Elisha?
You wanted to write letters to Elisha. Talk about that for a second.
one of the things that I would say, and this is, I'm really saying this because sometimes I think it opens up to life lessons along the way. One of the things that I wanted to do was, I wanted to write letters to Elisha at one point. Then this is like early on, so I want to also clear that the mindset change, and I also want to kind of share with this that it's okay to go through a myriad of emotions. When I first heard it, I didn't feel, if I'm honest, that my husband, and can I talk about that? I didn't feel like, I didn't feel like he was supportive enough. I had a lot of things going on. And so now I had this newborn baby in my arms. And then I was thinking, you know what? I need to write him letters because I want him to know who I am. I want him to know that he has a mother that adores him and loves him. All of those things went through my head. And then at times, I think, and I can also put this in there too, sometimes I think that we were at odds with each other because sometimes I wanted the husband, I got the prophet. Sometimes he wanted the wife and he got the prophets. And that's the thing when you go through some type of a life crisis, that sometimes you are on a myriad of emotions, and sometimes you're not always on the same wavelength with these emotions. So sometimes I'm waking up and I'm super high in faith and I don't like that he's being natural. Sometimes he wakes up and he's in a total plane and he's seen the end and God has showed him this and it's been downloaded in his spirit, and then I'm upset that he's chirpy. So that was something that I think not only challenged our marriage, but I believe it brought us closer and helped us to grow, and it helped us to understand one another, and also helped us to really understand what faith is. And so it was about acknowledging that there was something going on, but I had to look again, because even when writing that with Elisha, I had to really look again, because there was a certain level of, I'm feeling sorry for myself because I don't know what else to do. And it was a decision that I made, but now, looking back at it now, it's amazing what I felt then and what I feel now, how they're on like two totally ends of the spectrum, like total opposites.
When you were initially diagnosed with CHF, how many other people did you hear about that was diagnosed around the same time?
I remember 3 in particular.
And tell us about those 3.
They all passed away, unfortunately. And then I don't even want to say unfortunately, because, to live is Christ, to die is gain. So, but I remember the week that, in particular, that I got the news, and the week that I got the healing, the healing was affirmed. And I think it was in the same week that one of the ladies passed away. And I remember having this aha moment, like, God, that could have been me. I don't know if you guys remember, but I also remember a time that you had sprained your foot. Did you break your foot or sprain your foot?
Severe sprain.
It was a severe sprain. And we were at the hospital. We're in the emergency room. And totally different conversation going on. And the lady was talking about someone that she loved that they found dead that day. I refrained from that. They had found them on the floor. And they believe, one of these days when we're going to go there, they're going to be dead, because they also had CHF. And I just kept thinking, I knew God was speaking to me, because I had all of these people around me, and God kept showing me incident after incident. And also going to medical school, having understanding physiology, having an understanding of what this does to the body. I knew that God's hand was on me in a very peculiar way, whereas I was not feeling, I would say even then, probably 95% of the effects. I was having some things here and there, but the majority of it, I can't honestly say I felt.
And, during that process, and I know people know, CHF, Christ heals fully, that we, went on this journey and just went after God in a new way. People have seen that, but, although you're a prophetess all the time, although you're a mother all the time, how was Shamika, the person, feeling during this time?
You know, it's interesting because I know a lot of times people separate the two. And there is an idea of separation. And then again, there's not. You know, I'm very authentic when I say pretty much what you see is what you get. Even as a prophetess, you know, I have never really separated myself from that because, you know, regardless if I'm not on a platform, regardless if I'm not prophesying to anyone, that gift was developed in me as a little girl, probably from like the age of 3, probably was my first vision. So there was a part of that that's just entangled into Shamika, per se. Not necessarily even if you separate from the office. So Shamika was understanding some things, or trying to gain an understanding of some things. And I say that because around that time, if you remember, you had made a call for the hard cases. And then I remember telling God, I said, now I know he made a call for the hard cases, but I never expected that I would become a hard case. And so I was really, there was a part of me at first, the first time I heard that was really sad, but I don't think the sadness lasted really long, because the fighter in me, which is true to the nature of Shamika, if anybody knows me, I'm a fighter. I've always been a fighter. I'm a natural born fighter, you know, and it was like, I don't believe, and you know, sometimes that comes across as stubbornness or hard-headedness, but something inside of me just didn't feel like that was real. So a part of my truth was, I had to acknowledge that this was happening, but the essence of who I was saying, I don't think this is how the story ends. I just didn't feel that was my truth. And because I believe I rejected that as a truth in my essence and my spirit, a lot of what could have materialized never did.
You know, so, you know, July 7, 2017, woohoo, healed, heart back in normal,
I'm drinking my
infraction rate, and, you know, all those things going on. And so we're just living life. We're doing church. We're doing
living my best life.
You know, we're doing Elisha. Yeah, we're doing all of that. And then somewhere in the year 2018, tell us what happened.
I had another vision.
This was about August, right?
Something like that.
All right. Tell the people about that.
I had another vision. I knew something was wrong. And, you know, what's crazy about me on this time was, crazy about the situation, but like, I think I had the vision before I actually had a symptom. Whereas the last time, the first time, I was feeling this little, I don't know, I went a little pain on the side, but it wasn't like anything like extreme. It just kind of felt like, oh, maybe I over-exercised or maybe I overdid something. But I felt the symptom first. This time, I didn't feel the symptom. I had the dream first, which alerted me. And believe it or not, I really didn't start having symptoms again until I went back to the doctor. Which is crazy, huh? I had the dream first, and then I got the diagnosis again. And then it seems like right after I got that diagnosis, did I not have like a real episode after that? Like, for real. Like, I mean, it took me down for like a good week or so. Like, something crazy happened after that. And I remember being bedbound for about a week after the diagnosis, which makes me wonder, you know, sometimes, is it the way that we're battling some things in our psychology, in our psyche, that allows some things to happen? I don't know, but I can honestly say the symptoms happen after the diagnosis and not the other way around, which is weird.
You know, one of the things that I struggled with and that gave me great pause is that during church, seeing people healed, you know, between Lafayette, Covington, and places in between. Just seeing lives get changed. But at the same time, I'm not going to say the fear of death as if it was some impending thing, but you're living with this cloud over your head of this condition, and, you know, it seems to be worse this time than it was before. You know, somebody right now, and I know we're not trying to do too churchy, but, you know, church audience who comes in, who listens to us, you know, how is it that you experience all this good things, but yet lost, and then you're fighting for your own life and your own survival? What caused you to have some sense of peace or some sense of where your strength came from?
For me, it was, it was noticing that God has, while he's always unpredictable and he works in mysterious ways, there is a pattern in life. And I believe I started looking at patterns. And it was something that gave, and I know that might sound weird to somebody, but I really began to notice that. I just believe that because Daddy is such a merciful God and he's such a loving God, that though I did not understand why necessarily that path had been taken, I also understood a couple of things in God. And this is the first, and I'm really not trying to make it churchy, y'all, but this is really my understanding of it. The first thing was that I believe once you go through something one time, that you discover the way to it. And it's as it is in a natural, so it is in the spirit. Very natural thing. If somebody is a multi-millionaire and they've made their way up because of they approved businesses, they've done whatever, even if you take every single thing away from them, you've discovered the pathway, right? And at that time, I was preaching a lot about light and going inside and understanding that in his light, we shall see light. And so I had been doing this year-long studying, and I'm an avid reader. Anything I get my hands on, I think that'll help me. I'm like in it. I'm in it. And so I have been noticing. I'm like, okay, you know what? Usually when these type of things happen in a person's life, especially a prophet of God or someone, amen, who was called to God in a particular area, some kind of way God takes that adversity, y'all. And this is already scripture. Thinking about it, and he causes it to work for our good. So I just felt like God, whether you're going to cause me to use this as a pathway to help somebody else and to discover cures along the way. I was thinking about my scientific background. I was thinking about holistic centers. I was thinking about so many various avenues that God could use this as a way to help people. And sometimes I think we go through things not because of ourselves. And so now I'm like, okay, God, I don't know what's happening here, but some kind of way, you're going to cause my name to be great. And then the other thing about it was, the other pattern that I had observed was, okay, if you've known how to take dominion over a particular disease again, because God at that time was sending me people and services that had heart conditions. And I remember one particular lady one day when she just wrote this long thing on my wall, and she said, I don't know if you remember me, prophetess, but she said, you told me one day that, I think I was at Apostle Shower's church, she said, you told me that God was giving me a new heart. She said, you didn't know that I was up for a heart transplant, and they were going to do the heart transplant in a few days. And she said, I never had to have the surgery, and God healed me. And she said, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and all this other stuff. And God began to send people in services that we were going at with heart conditions, and they were all getting new hearts. And I'm like, there's some irony in this. All these people get new hearts, Jesus, by my heart, And so, but I also knew about God's faithfulness. And I'm like, y'all, one thing through this whole thing about the situation was, I just kind of went back to the scriptures when they said that some were healed immediately and then some were healed as they went. And so I kind of took this mindset that God has given me the healing, but my healing is as I go, or as I continue to do what I'm supposed to do and called to do, it shows up. And so I might not have the same testimony of somebody else and say, oh, it just happened in the service and there it was. I tend to have to walk these things out. But then I noticed that unlike the first time, I was walking it out with much greater ease. And we were too. Like, it did not have the same effect emotionally that it did the first time.
I'm glad you said that because, unlike some people, I had conversations with God, and I'm like, okay, God, I'm going over here with people I don't know, and I'm praying for them, and they're getting healed, they're getting delivered, they're getting their blessing. I go over here, and people getting strength in their legs and getting off wheelchairs, and just seeing these kind of things happen. But then me, I come home, it seems like I pray for you and you'll get worse. I pray for you and it doesn't get any better. And I'm having a real problem with God. Because I'm like, God, you blessing these folk that, frankly, I really don't know. And the one that I do know and the one that I do love, it doesn't even seem like.
So is this fair? Can I interject?
Go ahead.
Since we do kind of switch up the interview a little bit, and maybe I need to switch the camera. So is it fair to say that
I wasn't
the first
expecting
time the first time you were more at peace while I went through the emotional turmoil, and the second time I was more at peace, like in a different wavelength, and then you dealt more with the emotional side of it?
But I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So is it like now the second time, was it more that had more emotional impact on you than it did the first time?
I would say it had a more emotional impact on me, more so that I'm looking at Elisha. I'm looking at, this just glowing baby boy who, when this happened, was also beginning we discover about his GI issues that
Elisha gets sick. Oh yeah, that's right.
And Elisha,
baby gets sick.
Elisha is sick for almost 2 months, and then we have that
hospital sick.
We have that going on, and then I have that going on, and ministry isn't bringing in the finances that I need to be able to help take care of me. And because I'm having to cut days short and go to these doctor's appointments and all these other things, and the money wasn't there, the law office wasn't producing because I wasn't able to be fully invested like I should. And I'm dealing with now, am I a man? Am I a husband? Am I a provider? Am I the person who said I do? And now it seems like I can't. And so when all these things hit me again, it's like, how can I be any of those things and the one that I'm with seems to be catching the most hell? So, long way to answer your question, yes.
Y'all, the truth finds out when we having these candid conversations. So it brought into the whole thing about manhood, because you were worried about being their provider, and which honestly, y'all, I didn't feel like we ever skipped a beat. But this is the thing about him, that he was feeling pressure that he never made me even aware of.
One of the greatest challenges, that I've always had in ministry, and I guess I'm getting off the, the beaten path a little bit, is that I never want to be associated with someone who just, send this, sow this, do this, or whatever. I always wanted to be that level of integrity and those things that many times we got on calls while she was sick, and we'll be on call for 2 hours, and people think just because you asked for a certain seed that they didn't know not one seed came in. But yet we minister from a pure place. Why? Because money was never the motivating force for what you do. And a challenge for me, even right now, given this current climate, because we're on Facebook Live, which we don't do much anymore, is because we want to make sure that we are pure and we're genuine in what we do, and that we're not doing it for the sake of, building a brand or building popularity in that regard. And so the sickness this go around has taught me how to measure. I know how to measure stuff now. Some stuff isn't important. And I believe it's taught her how to measure. Hey, she's having this moment, but it's a bad moment, but it might not be bad enough that she wants me to turn around. Mm-hmm. We learn how to measure. And sometimes I've driven 2 hours. And as soon as I sit down, hey, we got to go here. We have to run here. We have to do this. And so I have to turn right back around and drive. So it has it has taught me how to measure and how to do what's important.
All right.
You know, so I want to go back to that.
Now, y'all stay tuned because there's more to this that's about to drop because there's a bombshell that's coming to the end of this.
You know, we've been going about 25 minutes, so give us about 20 more. And we're going to go with this. I want to ask you this question. As a mother, as who you are, you know, to peel back another veil, you know. We know you prophets. We know how you feel about that. But I know sometimes you thought I wasn't up, but I woke up and I turned over and act like I was asleep because I know you are in your space and, you know, doing whatever that you need to do. Like when you'll be up at 3 o'clock in the morning or at 3 a.m. in the morning, you know, what space were you in?
You know, sometimes, you know, it could be that I woke up because I had a vision. Other days it woke up because what kind of day is this going to be? You know, how well do I feel? Because I could almost gauge how well I was going to do that day by how I felt in the middle of the night, if that makes any sense. But with that being said, you know, I want to put this in perspective. You know, most of the time, most of the days were really, really, really phenomenal. Now, I did have one episode that lasted almost an entire month, and that was rough. That was really, 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 really rough.
But talk about the background. Not only that you were having a bad episode that lasted a month, but that was also during a time where my grandfather...
It was right after his grandfather had passed. We had been running back and forth in the hospital. Matter of fact, we weren't even living at our house. We were all practically living at the hotel because it was just closer to take care of Papa from there than to come back home and get on the road back and forth. So we practically lived in the hotel for a couple of weeks. And then I had all of this stuff going on with the church. We're trying to do renovations. So I was dealing with banks. I had meetings after meetings. Had a lot of big things on the background that I was kind of like pushing on the background because pastoring is more than just, you know, hey, getting up here to preach on a Tuesday or Sunday or Thursday, you know what I mean? Or, you know, it was just a whole bunch of things that were going on. And then he'd been working on books. I've been working on books. There's a lot of things that we had just been kind of like putting the pedal to the metal and getting done, and it seems like it was the most inopportune time to get sick because now, oh my God, everything has to stop now, and I didn't want it to stop because I was so close, and then I feeling like so far because I didn't have the ability to do what I needed to do. Where am I going with this? And so, does that answer the question?
I believe so.
Okay, and then long story short, I go through a stream of doctors. One doctor kicks me off as his patient because he just thinks like, ain't nothing, because I wouldn't take the medicine. Now, here's the thing. When I say now at this time, I probably would say about 80% of the time. I would say out of 10 days, I would say at least 8 of those days, and this is part of honest assessment, I would say about 8 of those days I'm doing well on average. And then actually, you know, we had gotten to a place even this last go around where I probably wouldn't have an episode for maybe like 3 weeks at a time, and it was just unexplained. I couldn't tell you, you know, doctors couldn't say why. Why am I able to do that? You know, now mind you, when it would happen, it was bad, but I mean, I just went 21 days without any sign of it at all. So I knew something supernatural was happening. I believe that God's blueprint, God's DNA is in my DNA. And I wake up in the morning and I confess that. I mean that in my soul. God's blueprint, his DNA is in my DNA, and I'm going to walk in the supernatural glory of God. This is the conversation I have to have with myself every day, because what I had to do was dispel all of the things that the doctors were telling me. Because at that point, I don't know how many doctors I had, because they thought I was a peculiar case, right? And the reason why they thought I was a peculiar case because they knew when they looked at my test results, I should not be able to do anything but lay down in that bed. But somehow I was defying the odds, and they were like, well, we're going to put you on this medicine, that medicine. In my heart, and this is where I'm coming to, because I want somebody to listen to this. Don't let people bully you into decisions that you don't feel are right, you know. And I felt in this medical profession, had I not had the medical background that I had, I would have definitely been bullied in thinking that I had to do this. I had to do that. And the question that I asked one physician about the cardiologist before last, who got so mad, y'all. He was like, you're going to take this beta block, you're going to take this, you're going to take that. And I was like, well, if the goal of the medicine is to make me have a functional, happy life, and as of right now, I can jog for 45 minutes. I can do planks. I can do just about anything. I can do cardio. I can, I can work sometimes 19-hour days. If the goal is to having a normal, functional life, then what would be the point of the medicine? Because you're going to mess up something else up. So I just felt like God was leading. God would send prophets. And they would tell me, Bishop Winston was like, you need to be eating this, woman of God. Prophet John Lewis, you need to be eating this. And I find out, I would dream things. I would see stuff in my sleep, and I wake up and I'm like, babe, I'm going to cook such and such. I'm going to do such and such. Why are you going to eat that? Because I feel in my spirit that's what I need to eat. And so it became, God was taking me on a journey, and I didn't realize it then. But really what he was teaching me was showing me cures in the earth. And I had no idea that it was going to get on that level. So that was explaining that. But then after that particular doctor let me go as a patient and said, I won't, take care of you, I told Prophet, I said, I'm going to try one more cardiologist. And honestly, the only reason why I was trying one more cardiologist wasn't because of the symptoms. It's because we had decided as a couple that eventually one day we wanted to have another child. And in order to have another child and have the OBGYN, I know I'm getting some personal stuff, that we wanted, I had to have a cardiologist. That's the reason why. So somebody might be wondering, looking at this broadcast, well, if you're feeling good and you're doing well, why were you even seeking a cardiologist? That's why. So, but God has a sense of humor. So that was my real reason for seeking it out, because other than that, I wouldn't be worried about, let me say it how we would say it over here, now one of them. You know what I mean? And my husband will tell you, I wouldn't be worried about now one of them. Okay? The only reason why is because I wanted a particular top-notch OBGYN that I love, and she's my friend, but she wouldn't do it without me having a cardiologist.
Well, she still think you're crazy.
She still think I'm crazy, but she believe me. Look, she think I'm crazy. When I told her, I said, when I was pregnant with Elisha, I said, my baby's cord is wrapped around his neck. She's like, why do you think that? Huh?
Well, let's do the ultrasound.
Yeah, she's like, why do you think that? I said, because I dreamed it. I know it. And she thinks I'm crazy. She's like, all right, let's do the ultrasound.
And that's normal.
Well, actually, she couldn't tell. She was like, I can't tell, I can't see, but I'm sure it's normal. You just feeling like that because your mom. I'm like, no, I see stuff. Long story short, after 30-something hours of labor, the cord was severely wrapped around his neck. I was right. And, so
but if you would have had a natural birth,
it could have killed him. So, God was all in the midst of this or whatever. God was making believers out of my doctors too, because I had a whole bunch of them now that still think I'm crazy, but they do everything I ask them to do. So, anyways, fast forward, I go and I tell Prophet, I said, this is the last one I'm going to try. If not, we just going to have to trust God and be done with it. I might not have her as OBGYN. It is what it is. I get there. This doctor says, and I won't say his name, he says, the Holy Spirit is in this room. I'm like, hey, God. So he tells me the Holy Spirit.
What did he say again?
The Holy Spirit is in this room. And he thought that I sought him out because he's a believer and he's known, amen, for miracles. And he's a healer. So I was like, no, never heard of you. Didn't even know about all of that. And then he says, oh, well, how did you come here? And I was like, I don't know, just God ordered my steps. And that's basically what happened. Long story short, he said, we're gonna believe, and I'm gonna trust the plan. We're gonna work this out together within medicine. Now, he's a licensed practicing cardiologist. People love him. And it gives that God was setting people in places where Christians could go to. Long story short, he comes to me, he says, no. We take some more tests, he runs a bunch of tests. Now, in the middle of all of that, I have another dream. I tell Prophet, I said, I just feel like I'm about to hear some really devastating news. I said, I sense it, whatever. I tell him about this, that I see, and he like, babe, I'm pretty sure at this point, he tired of me and my dreams. What else could go wrong? So anyways, and plus, he was thinking, why are you being pessimistic? And we just found a doctor that loves you in your beliefs, in your craziness. He loves you, you know? And what are you talking about, woman? I'm like, I just can't help it. I see what I see. So, long story short, I had the appointment yesterday, and then this doctor tells me, on top of that, he says, still believing, still in faith, he says, I don't know why they didn't catch this. He said, but not only do you have CHF, he says, but you have regurgitation and a mitral valve prolapse. Say what? Now, yesterday I find out that I have trouble on top of trouble, so to speak. And the crazy thing about it is, here's the crazy thing. Either one of those things alone, either one of them alone would be enough to be fatal or to put you bedridden, or both, you know? So when he looked at it, he said, I don't know how all of these cardiologists missed this. Because I've been to some of the top-notch cardiologists in the state. He said, I don't know how they missed this. And he said, you know, but sometimes when people are not looking for a particular thing, they overlook it. So that happened. And so I was telling Prophet, I said, the crazy thing about it is that the treatment for, let me see, put it like this. It was a good thing that I rejected the treatment, because the treatment that would have probably benefited, and I'll say that word loosely, the CHF would have caused more harm on this side with the other thing, because the medicine, some of, not all of them, but some of the medicines that work to help one act antagonistically to the other. So if I would have listened to all of these people and been bullied or railroaded into a way, there's no telling how this would have ended up. So I say this to say, God took an already hard situation. God bless you, babe. He took an already situation that was already jacked up from the flow up, and he turned the fire hotter. And he said, okay, so if you had any doubt that God was in this, and it is going to be the supernatural power of God that's going to sustain you, uphold you with the right hand of his righteousness, girl, if you believed that any part of it that you could do, I mean, he made it so impossible that nobody will be able to say that this is not a healing documented beyond science. Like, this is so crazy, this is so outrageous. So, people say, and I can tell, I know my husband's next question, how did you feel when you had that, when he told you that? It didn't feel like cutting cartwheels, didn't feel like doing a cheer, but I tell you what I did feel. I felt an enormous sense of peace, and I just felt like God was setting me up for something greater. Because when God allows already hard or difficult situation to get into the realm where it's almost impossible, then you have to believe, yet though he slay me, yet will I trust him. God has a plan, and he has a vision, he has a purpose. And so I may not be able to tell you and pinpoint the date and the hour that whatever is going to fully manifest, but because I believe that the blueprint of God is in my DNA, when I wake up in the morning, I tell myself, you are the healed of the Lord. And guess what? I operate my day as such, and it's fine, it's good, it's well. So I tell somebody who's watching this is that your issue may be very different, but God has a particular way of making the impossible possible. And God has such a mysterious way of making the intangible tangible. It's already on the inside of you, and you will not fail. God is within her, and she shall not fail. And I understand there will be a myriad of emotions, but the most important gift that you can give yourself is to center yourself And understand that you cannot be tossed to and fro with your own emotions. You can't let your mind and your imagination run away with you. You've got to center yourself and come back to the foundation of your faith and your truth. And you've got to own it. You've got to embrace it. You've got to walk on it. And when you're feeling whatever, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling resentful, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling like your life is upside, you know what? It's fine. It's fine to acknowledge that. But what it's not fine to do is to stay and wallow in that and not understand the gift of life that God is giving you in that moment. And you have the power on the inside to determine how your destiny plays out. Nobody else. No doctor, no physician, no banker, no whatever. You have that God-given authority. And if you don't use it, you have absolutely no one else to blame. It's all on you.
All right, you guys, here's the setup now. She's in the doctor's office, supposed to be reviewing test results. But the first about 15 minutes of your visit was about what?
You.
Tell him.
He kept asking me things like, what does your husband believe? And he knows that Prophet is an attorney and he's a pastor of, he says a Baptist church. So he kept wondering about, how involved this pastor was. And he kept asking me about his eating habits. 15 minutes was about him, and I think he said it because he said, if we're going to be aggressive in this, then it's important that the whole family be on one accord, because he finds that his patients have, a greater level of success, basically. So,
and your big announcement is?
What is the big announcement?
You said you're leading up to something.
That was the leading up. That was the double whammy. You missed it. You didn't think that was big enough? What else gotta happen, player?
Oh, I'm talking about the journey, babe. The 6 weeks.
Oh. Yeah. I think that was the big announcement. I think he's excited about this part. Well, I was already in process of churning, so I don't think that really was a big thing because that happened before that meeting. It was just that I'm in transition to being vegan, but I'm kind of like pescatarian right now. And he is too.
Ain't that something? So listen, with your closing remarks, and we have some people, about 11 people are viewing right now, and the ones who probably listening but didn't click all the way on, so I don't know they on yet. We go back in about 6 months for a follow-up visit. What is your important word, not to the people that's watching, but when we come back and look at this 6 months later, what does Shamika today wants to tell Shamika 6 months from now?
I believe that when Shamika 6 months from now is going to look at this video, I'm going to speak to her and say, Shamika, I need you to stand fast in your faith. I need you to be steadfast. I need you to remember the things that you learned from your little girl, the things that your dad taught you, mom taught you, your grandma taught you. I need you to go back to that moment when you were a little girl and your dad fell through the roof of the house and you went to his bedside and prophesied and believed. I need you to remember that you don't have the right to give up on God. You don't have the right to feel sorry for yourself. What you need to do is be who you've always been, and that's a fighter from the inside out. And I would tell Shamika to embrace the journey because life is absolutely beautiful and she has so much to be grateful for. She has, son that she loves and adores. I had the privilege, even before Elisha, to help raise, Jeremiah. And I think about all of those things, these kids, nephews and nieces that been privileged to come into my life and help raise another generation. And I'm grateful for that. I got a chance, to marry the love of my life. I got a chance to do so many great things and travel the world and do so many things. And I believe that the best is yet to come. And so as much as I've enjoyed and I thank God and I've appreciated this space, I think that what I look at now is that there's so much greater that is coming even beyond what I know in this moment. And I have to embrace this moment in order to see that future manifest. And so right now, my focus is on life, and I'm living my best life. So that's what I tell Shanika. Live your best life, girl. Own the moment because it's yours.
I think that's it. I don't know what else to say after that.
I love y'all.